Good morning, everybody. I made this video about 3 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't sleep, and I figured I'd make a video that would help you sleep. I'll try not to make it boring, but please get your name at the top so if you lose it, you know where it goes. These are doodle notes, which means you should have a couple of different colors out, even if it's colored pencils, markers, whatever. Make these your own. But today we are talking about functions. I'm going to use red first. You know it's my favorite. So feel free to color it in, but I'm going to move on. Functions are kind of like we're taking a set of numbers. So I'm going to say over here, the domain. We call this the domain. The domain is the set of possible numbers. I'm going to abbreviate. We're going to call that the domain here too. That's the stuff that goes in, and I'm going to explain this a little bit more as we go, but this is the input. So imagine we're putting a whole bunch of stuff in a machine. And by the way, stuff could be numbers. It could be some other things too. It could be shapes. It could be anything. But it goes into this machine, and it goes through this whole thing, and what comes out is the output. Another way to describe the output is to say the range. So if you hear the word domain, what comes out is the range. The domain is almost always the x values. What comes out, of course, you can imagine, are the y values. So the range is the possible, all possible y values. Okay, so we put in the domain, goes through the input machine, goes through the function machine, sorry, the domain comes in, what comes out is the range. We put an x value in, what comes out is the y. This is always the independent. Remember last year in 7th grade you learned about independent variables, and what comes out is dependent. Dependent. Ha. Okay, make sure you have all that. A function is really a relationship. It's really a relationship with one or more variables. So up till now, you usually worked with one variable. Now last year when you did rates and proportions and ratios and unit rates, you also learned about a constant of proportionality. And that you use two variables for that situation. That's kind of what functions are, except functions are a little bit more specific, and we're going to get into that in a second. What I mean by that is where each input, so everything I put into this function box here has one single output. I can't put one item in here and then get two items out. It doesn't work that way. It has one single output. So if we look down here where it says functions, like I said, feel free to color these in, make them pretty if you want. Each x value is only allowed to correspond to one y value. Oftentimes you see little sets of data like this, and maybe 1, 2, 3 corresponds with 4, 5, 6. That means this gets this, this gets this, this gets this. Each number in the domain gets one number in the range. That's how this works. I'm going to scroll down so my screen will go blank, so go ahead and pause if you need to. This relationship down here in this table is a function because none, whoops, what's going on here? This relationship is a function because none of the input values, these are the x's, the input values, has more than one different output value, or y. Don't forget, the other word for this is domain. This is the range. This relationship down here is not a function. Please underline and circle that. I want to give this as an example because at least one of the input values has more than one different output value. If you look, if I put in a -3, I get two different answers. I can't have that. Whatever I put in the function machine has to give me one answer. So make sure you really understand that. That's why functions are very specific. Notation. We're not always going to spell out the word function. We're going to abbreviate it like we do in math. We're going to use a symbol. So when we are dealing with functions, you will see something that looks like this. An F, can you imagine what F stands for? Yep, function. And then in parentheses, you'll see an X. That is in place of the Y. And this is how we say it out loud. F of X. That's how you're going to say it every single time you see it. F of X. So when you see this, you say F of X. When you evaluate a function for a particular X value, you just substitute. Or sometimes we say plug in. Oh gosh, I hope you can read my writing. It says plug in, and then simplify. Here's our example. F of X equals 2x plus 1. Find F of 3, or the function of 3. So imagine this. I'm putting my 3 into my function machine. Then I multiply that by the 2 here, because remember I'm substituting this in for X. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 1 equals 7. So for F of 3, the answer is 7, or the range. When we put something in, we can always expect a consistent, what? Result or outcome to come out. You might want to underline some of those things. I'm going to scroll down, so make sure you've got this screen all set. Oh, I'm not going to scroll down right away. Let me pause.